But it's not all just problems and pitfalls ahead. America's need to get more involved in the rest of the world has also created a host of new opportunities, and nowhere more so than with Russia. In just a few weeks, it's almost become a cliché. The Russian cavalry, Colonel Vladimir Putin commanding, riding to the rescue of his beleaguered American friend. And he was promptly rewarded.
Yes, we're going to take a tour.
I think there's no indication that the administration really wanted to renegotiate the ABM treaty. They wanted to get rid of the ABM treaty. Now they appear to have agreed to renegotiate it, which is a wonderful diplomatic coup for Putin.
I brought him to my ranch because, as the good people in this part of the world know, that you usually only invite your friends into your house.
There are also other goodies in it for Russia. More Western economic aid, an end to criticism over its human rights record in Chechnya and elsewhere. But Putin's decision is more than that. It signals a drastic reorientation of Russian foreign and defense policies. Putin allowed the Americans to send their military into Russia's own backyard, into Uzbekistan and other parts of Central Asia, something that would have been unthinkable before September 11th. Control of Central Asia has always been important to Russia. It's even more important now because of the region's huge oil and gas reserves, resources the Americans would love to tap. So letting the US move into Russia's soft underbelly was a bold and risky move for Putin.
The analogy would be, suppose the United States had lost the Cold War, and then for entirely unrelated reasons the Soviet Union said it wanted to have a military presence in southern Mexico to deal with the security problem it was having from terrorists located in Panama. The United States, even had we lost the Cold War, would not have liked that very much.
He did that over the objections of some of his generals, maybe many of his generals, some of his public opinion. There's, of course, a question of whether he can sustain that shift, but assuming he can, and he's proved to be both popular and adroit in handling his own domestic politics, that is a major change.
But not as great a change as the transformation of George W. Bush. Until September the 11th, the U.S. president single-mindedly pursued a go-it-alone foreign policy, determined to avoid the kind of coalition diplomacy and what he derisively called nation-building that he's involved in now.
I think the debate in the United States now, the interesting debate, is between unilateralist and multilateralist versions of internationalism. The Bush administration came into office with a unilateralist view of internationalism. It has undergone a kind of road on the, Paul on the road to Damascus conversion as a result of September 11th. Now let's see if the conversion remains.
In a sense, we're finally realizing that international politics and foreign policy is not something that you can do in a haphazard and amateur fashion, that the rest of the world really does matter. Whether that political system can grow up and reform itself to conduct foreign policy, not perfectly, but in a more disciplined, serious, sensitive fashion, I think remains to be seen.
The good news is we're an extremely wealthy country, and we can afford it. We have the money to put where our mouth is, where our principles are. The bad news is that we, right now, don't seem to have the political will to do that.
The profs may be skeptical, but the students are more upbeat.
We have a sense that America is a great nation, but can aspire to be greater. But we need a new approach politically, socially, culturally towards the Middle East and towards other areas of the world.
And they're prepared for the long haul.
I think the real test for this generation is to see what's going to happen to us in 25 years when people from our cohort are running things. If we don't handle this, we will be destroyed.
The young have the luxury of time on their hands, and the world may need it. Events such as those of September the 11th have a way of taking a long time to work their way through, and by the time they do, they can change the world in ways that no one around now can even imagine.
There are going to be things we do in the next year whose full effects will not be felt for several years and are probably impossible to anticipate. It's one of the reasons why international politics never actually does come to an end.
The commitments the United States has been making in building its anti-terrorist coalition will surely outlast the war by years and possibly even for decades. It could very well be that some of the young people being trained for leadership here and elsewhere could one day be faced with paying off some of the IOUs that Washington has been handing out in recent days.
Thanks, Joe. When we